Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Key Gripe, the show for short, sweet reviews of new release movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. And today I will be talking about the film Get Out, and there are some minor spoilers. A black man and his white girlfriend go to her parents' house for the weekend, much to his hesitation. And when he gets there, his deepest fears are real, but not for the reasons he expects. The film stars David Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Bradley Whitford, Catherine Keener, Caleb Landry Jones, Betty Gabriel, Marcus Henderson, Stephen Root, and Lil Rel Howery. And the film is directed by Jordan Peele. Let's get it out in the open. There is no way to discuss this movie without addressing the overtones of race throughout. But at the same time, those overtones are used brilliantly to tell this story. Because let's face it, most people get uncomfortable when talking about race these days, and with good reason. But we can have real discussions about it. And this movie does a good job of steering that conversation. It's almost like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner tailored to an audience for 2017. There's one big difference, though. This one is about suspiciously enthusiastic approval of interracial couples versus the taboo of it, which is more what Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was about. Now, Get Out earns the unique distinction of being a sociological horror movie. Rather than overly relying on gore or jump scares, this film brings up something much more horrifying and awkward. It places the viewer in the shoes of a man completely out of place and feeling like a creepy focal point. We've all been there. We all know what it feels like to be the kind of creepy focal point when you're out of place in a situation. And I also fully understand why Jordan Peele wants you to see it in theaters with other people around. Sadly, my friend and I were alone in the theater, but I can see how the experience matters in a theater full of people watching this film. You recognize the behaviors that white people in America do. And as a white person, it makes me uncomfortable to watch this stuff on screen and knowing that this is real stuff. This is really how certain people talk about race, even when they're trying to be, oh, look how not racist I am. But that all builds up to the twist, which makes it so brilliant in retrospect. And I won't spoil it, but all that stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable, you realize there's a reason for it. And how it's all put together is just so well done. The acting is one thing that really lifts this movie, and star David Kaluuya is the reason for that. I've only seen him previously in Sicario, but he shines as the smart but also the paranoid Chris. He has this very strong presence on screen. I think it's in the eyes. He has those suspicious but calculating eyes. Likewise, Allison Williams is great as his supportive girlfriend Rose, and the chemistry between the two is excellent, and that's something that really drives the movie, especially in the first half of the movie as it's setting up the whole situation. Also, both Bradley Whitford, Catherine Keener, those are both excellent actors, and they're definitely creepy as the parents in this film. And even though it's not a comedy, you do get some great comic relief from Lil Rel Howery's character, who plays Chris's best friend, who's the TSA agent, who really lifts up the importance of being a TSA agent. And then of all the characters, Caleb Landry Jones is probably the least subtle in his presentation, but that also speaks to the overall twist when you find out what's really going on. The whole cast is just fantastic, but another great one was Betty Gabriel. She has some amazing moments as well because she is wonderfully unnerving in her character. Jordan Peele, of Key and Peele fame, might be famous for his comedy, but here he shines in the dramatic horror genre. And there's definitely inspiration in this movie from movies like The Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby. That paranoia, the almost surreal experience of the person who is the focal point. I got a lot of Rosemary's Baby in terms of the tone throughout this movie. Now, the plot is fairly basic in terms of how it unfolds, at least the structure is fairly predictable, but the purpose behind it and how it torpedoes your expectations is executed very well. I have to give Jordan Peele a lot of credit. This movie had a $4 million budget, which is insanely low. He has to use characters to tell his story then, and he does so very well. And for a first-time director, he's proven that he is a superb auteur and a creative mind. This is a very creative story. And both critics and audiences have rewarded his debut. It's made over $100 million in the US and has like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I do have one big key gripe though. And I hate reducing my problems to one scene, but there was one scene I just could not stand. And it wasn't even the context of the scene, it was how it was filmed. There's a scene where Chris and Rose are talking openly about his fears of being there, as well as the paranoia of his conversation with her mother. And the scene, when they're talking, is done with Steadicam. And it was never still during the conversation. There's a lot of moving around. And I know why directors use Steadicam to create a more intimate sense of realism, but here it was very distracting to a point of annoyance. The direction throughout is fairly smooth, so I was a little confused as to why they chose to do that in this particular scene, unless they really wanted you to get dizzy before things get even crazier. Overall, when I first saw the trailer for this film, I had no interest in seeing it. That was a mistake. This film is very well done all around, especially the outstanding cast. It also accomplishes something that horror doesn't do enough. It challenges the viewer, and in this case, it uses race to challenge the viewer. But Jordan Peele uses that so well to tell his story, especially for his first foray into directing. I'm giving Get Out an 8.5 out of 10 for being surprisingly a very good movie, especially for the low budget, but also just a very surprising, very enjoyable, all around fantastic film from Jordan Peele. Let me know your thoughts on Get Out. Just don't put anything with a teacup in it or it might trigger me. I'll just tell you that right now. And that does it for this episode of Key Gripe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Nice work. Good job. If you like what you saw, you can just go ahead and click that subscribe button for all videos past and future. You can also head over to my website and see all the other stuff that I do, including the books I've written. So go ahead, click stuff.